Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube. What you're looking at is the site of a mobile testing facility, and they recently launched these in Florida just less than a week ago. When I first saw this imagery, it really blew me away. Specifically the image inside of the O on the COVID-19 on the side of this mobile testing facility. When I first saw it, I was pretty excited because it connects to some other things that I've shown you guys recently. And then, within just a few days, I realized that so many people were talking about this that the mainstream news had to come out and try to debunk it. There's several layers to peel away here, and I'll get to the debunking video in just a moment. Also, I'm going to prove to you that that symbol that's inside of the COVID on the side of this mobile testing facility is in fact Anubis, the god of the dead. On my last video, I shared with you these statues, and they're from ancient Egypt. They're currently being held at the Cleveland Museum of Art. In that video, I draw a comparison between the spirit at work in ancient Egypt and that spirit that's at work currently in the world today. Here you can see the symbolism of the kneeling and also the raising of the fist. And then I connected that with the obvious examples of what we're seeing take place right now all around the world, especially in America. This is the same Antichrist spirit that worked through ancient Egypt at work currently in America today. Also in that video, I showed you how back in 2010, the statue of Anubis, the god of the dead, went on a world tour. And even more significant, that 26-foot tall Anubis statue was ultimately installed at the Denver International Airport, which is one of the most significant occult sites in the world, filled with Freemason and Illuminati imagery, also lesser magic in the murals that were all across the walls. As I explained in the video, this is all symbolic for the Antichrist beast system. That same Antichrist spirit that was in ancient Egypt is here now in America. I believe the fact that this statue, this god of the dead, making his world tour and ending up at the Denver International Airport was quite significant. It's another sign of that encroaching wickedness. In the last 10 years alone, we're getting so much closer to that final one world order, one world monetary system, and Antichrist leader. So for me, the fact that I had just made this video talking about Anubis, and then just a few days later I find this story and I find that symbol of Anubis connected with COVID-19. I was very excited. So now we start peeling away some of the layers. When I first saw this, I thought I was the only one that had seen it. And then in just a few days, I realized that so many people had seen it and were talking about it that the mainstream media, they had to answer for it. So let's take a look at what the mainstream media is saying about this particular symbol.
If you see these viral images on social media, don't share them. They claim that certain mobile COVID sites have a logo depicting Anubis, the Egyptian god of death. The verified team found the logo is actually an aardvark for company Aardvark Mobile Tours. They set up mobile sites for medical testing and events. These Anubis claims are false.
Now we peel away the layers. You gotta love how quickly and succinctly they wrapped up this story. And on the surface, it makes sense. But we're living in a time now where we have to trust our spiritual eyes, our spiritual sense on things. Not everything we see is true. Most of what we see and experience these days is a lie, is an illusion. So they tell us that the logo is an aardvark, and they show that to us. And sure, one could make an argument that it looks a lot like an aardvark. Here on my channel, for many, many years, we talk about the symbols because symbolism is another language, and so few people see it. But you do. Many of you do. So now we're looking at the side of Florida's COVID-19 mobile testing lab. This is the same mobile testing lab that has that symbol that looks a lot like Anubis or Anubis. And the god of the dead ties us back to ancient Egypt. Well, what do I find here on the side of the C-19 mobile testing lab? Not one, but two pyramids, also arranged in the as above, so below, one pyramid up, one pyramid down. And now we see a further connection to that symbol being that of the god of the dead in ancient Egypt. And as that Antichrist spirit in ancient Egypt subjugated the people and enslaved the people, so too here in America now is that very same thing happening with that very same spirit. Still peeling away the layers. Let's take a look. Do you remember several months ago when the crown virus first really started off? Started making its way around the world? Well, we had this story come out of England. A few dozen Britons were actually working in China at the time, so they brought them back to the UK so they could be tested for the crown virus. And this was the story. And as you can see here, the four horsemen symbolism. They brought them back on horseman carriages. And of course, these horseman carriages happen to have a white horse as their symbol. So this connects us back to Florida, and with the company claiming that the symbol is just an aardvark. Now you're starting to see how this plays out. To see the symbols, and more importantly to understand the symbols, we have to look deeper. We have to look into the spiritual for this. Most people write all of this off as just a regular news story and they see nothing else there. For several years I've been talking about the post-human existence. And it's really easy to spot and it's really easy to explain. All I have to do is show you some of these news stories I'm going to show you. Well, you may have heard of this right here. This is Flippy the robot. Just about a week ago, this news story came out and everybody was making a big deal of Flippy the robot, how cool it is. Well, it's not cool. It's a part of an agenda. This whole thing is part of an agenda. The automation taking place in America specifically right now, and it's really all over the world. I believe they're preparing us for a mass human extinction event. This is why we've seen this massive increase in automation over the last few years. Now here's some of the headlines. It's from June 2019. Millions of jobs have been lost to automation. Here's an example from January 2019. You gotta love the way they framed this up. Automation threatening 25% of jobs in the US, especially the quote, boring and repetitive ones. Here's another headline from January 2019. Artificial intelligence expert says automation could replace 40% of jobs in 15 years. Frankly, I think it's going to be a lot less than 15 years. Here's another article, this one from April of 2019. Robots are stealing our jobs. A recent study predicts automation will eliminate 73 million jobs by 2030. November 2017, robot automation will take 800 million jobs by 2030. 2017, 10 jobs where robots really are replacing humans. This headline from the Washington Post goes back to 2016, The Brave New World of Robots and Lost Jobs. 2017, 30 companies already replacing humans with robots. Here's another one from November 2017. Automation threatens 800 million jobs, but technology could still save us, says report. And even back then, 3 years ago, they were saying, new analysis says governments need to act now to help a labor force in flux. January 2016, technological advances could kill 5 million jobs by 2020. Now here's some more recent headlines, and it's important to look back at the older headlines that happened before the crown virus pandemic took place, because all of this was already being set up. They were already preparing for a post-human existence several years ago. And now considering how so many jobs have been wiped out by this crown virus pandemic, the bigger picture becomes much more clear. Robots taking over jobs amid pandemic as Boston Dynamics teaches Atlas humanoid to do gymnastics. July 2nd, 2020. Robots don't get sick. Crown virus could accelerate automation and hurt Philly's low-wage workers. July 15th, 2020. Convenience store in Japan using robot to test out retail automation. July 15th, 2020, Amazon Fulfillment Center features robots working alongside employees. April 2020, robots welcome to take over as pandemic accelerates automation. It's important to note that it's not just jobs that robots are taking over. Robots really are taking over everything and every aspect of our lives. Once again, this system is preparing for a mass human extinction event. Boston Dynamics' terrifying robot dogs have been put to work by at least one police agency. And this is back in 2019. Since then, we've seen even more of this.
Regardless of the circumstances that we found ourselves in, whether it was a dinner party in downtown Nairobi, which I went to, or in Korea, in Seoul, where John was talking to university students, women university students, about the future of their lives, regardless of the circumstances that these folks lived in, the conclusions that they were coming to were the same. While there were cultural nuances that were different in different places, the conclusion that people were coming to about their future was consistent. And that was that in order to have a different life, particularly among the women, actually exclusively among the women, in order to have a life that's different from the life that my mother led and the life that my grandmother led, I need to have fewer kids. I need to be empowered. I need to be in control of what's happening in my life. I need an education. I need a career. And I need to control those decisions about what the shape of my family is going to be. I recognize that I do have cultural and familial responsibilities, but I'm going to interpret them in my own terms rather than the terms, as John quite correctly pointed out, of some form of religious beliefs or in terms of what my clan or my family tells me I have to do. I'm going to empower myself. And so, when I was in a slum in Delhi, sitting with we did 2 focus groups in this slum, listening to women talk about this in very sophisticated terms, the same that I've heard in other places, and we're in like a place of abject poverty. And listening to these women talk about their lives and how they wanted things to change, and I'd see a glow under their sari. I was thinking, what is that? What is glowing? And then all of a sudden, one of them reached in and pulled a smartphone out. And John and I talked about this afterwards. It was, she has the knowledge of humanity in her hands, the knowledge of human history, all of science, everything that you could think about. She has a data plan, as poor as she is, that she's able to access this information. And she can read it. She can also communicate with her friends and her relatives and everybody else the way that we do. But this is a person who is a fully formed modern person, regardless of the circumstances that they're sitting in. Why wouldn't she be making decisions that are similar to the decisions that other women are making in the world? And regardless of where we went, we kept hearing this message over and over and over again, that the story was about bringing people together in a city, urbanizing, and then the lives of women changing, and that affecting what the future of humanity is going to be.
We really are living in incredible times, and I've been talking about these times for many years. It's the end of the 4th age, and we're moving into the 5th age, the age of Aquarius, or the age of Antichrist. In this process, we find the destruction of old standards, of old institutions. Everything's falling apart so it can all come together as one. So here we find automation taking place in Hollywood. Female robot Erica slated as actress for new movie. A recent news story shaking up Hollywood involves the reported casting of a robot to be the star of a $70 million budgeted science fiction movie. And this from July 24th, just a few days ago. This Russian firm's star designer is actually an artificial intelligence, but no one knew that for a year. CGI influencers like Lil Miquela are about to flood your feeds. Lil Miquela may be fascinating in her own right, but the rise of digital humans in social media and elsewhere is just getting started. And of course, this all ties in with the rise of the sex robot. We've seen that industry really grow just over the last few years. Inside London's first sex robot party where humans romp with dolls. Now this one here is really fascinating if you think about it. Look at what's happening to humanity. Look at how so many humans are losing their humanity. We're seeing lawlessness all around the world, wickedness in the streets, violence, hatred. It seems that many humans are acting much more like animals these days. Robots and artificial intelligence are becoming more human. So it's interesting how we see the inversion taking place in our reality right now, how everything really is being turned upside down. We have this. Scientists are using stem cells from frogs to build the first living robots. And here's yet another example of how robots are becoming more humanized. Scientists developed artificial human skin that enables robots to feel and respond to physical contact. So we see these stories about this incredible advancement towards AI and robots and creating robots that are more human-like. We juxtapose that with what's actually happening to humanity right now. A couple of stories came to mind. This one right here. Arkansas National Guard begins relocating positive C-19 cases to quarantine isolation facilities. We're watching humanity go into captivity. I've already shown you the symbols behind all of this. I want you to check out this clip from Australia. This was taken just about a week ago.
Mate, put your mask on. You got to go back inside.
I'm trying to go for fresh air, man.
Yeah, I get that, man, but...
It's been 7 days, man.
Yeah, but you're meant to be inside, right? It's not safe for you to be going
I'm
outside.
negative at the moment.
That's fine, mate. I get
Why would I
that.
stay inside when people are positive?
I get that you said that you're negative, but you can't be walking around the building. You need to go back upstairs. You need to go back to your room. Okay?
First is my house, one.
We need to go back to your house then.
Two, I'm trying to go for fresh air. Literally, I've been stuck in the house for 7 days now.
I know.
And
I
I'm
know.
negative. You guys are actually, it's going to be more cases, literally. There's positive people here.
And I get that you're saying that you're negative, but the whole building, regardless of who's negative and who's positive, is in lockdown.
So you guys
need to
aren't
go
even
back to your
taking the
house.
people that are positive out of the building.
This building is in complete lockdown. No one's going in or out.
You guys allow a chick to go for a dog every day to go for a walk.
I haven't been here. I haven't let anyone out.
Every day I see a girl coming out here with the dogs to go for a walk. And you guys announced in the Daniel government, they announced that you can go for supervised walk. So I'm asking 3 officers to come with me. I just want to go for some fresh air.
You're not allowed outside, mate. That's our instructions, mate. Where are you going? You can't go out the other door.
Can't go out.
Don't touch me, bro.
Can't go out, mate.
See?
Go back upstairs.
See
You've been
this,
told.
bro?
You've
See
been
this?
told.
Go
buddy.
back upstairs.
Oh,
Back
see
upstairs,
this?
please, mate. Come to your room. Excuse me.
No, I want to go for some fresh air, man. That's it. You guys can come with me if you guys want to.
But you're not allowed outside.
Our instructions are that you
Why
go
you
back
guys?
to your house.
Why did they announce that you can go outside?
I'm just giving you our instructions. Our instructions
Let
are...
me talk to the DHS people.
You put your mask
You
back
can-
on,
you can
please.
call
You can
DHS.
call them on the phone, okay? The problem is that you're not allowed to leave from this hotel.
Getting forward everywhere I go, can't walk out the door. Let me just go for fresh air. So outside there. I'm going to stand right there.
You have to go back up.
I'm going to
We've asked
stand
you.
right there.
We've
I'm going to
asked you.
stand right there where the
asked you.
officers
No,
stand.
come on.
Unfortunately,
Can you guys not touch me? Am I touching you guys?
I'm not
Am I touching you guys?
No,
No.
but
You're
you're not
not
listening
I'm
to
going
us.
to
You
stand
won't
right
listen to us
there.
because then you are touching it.
Remember just a few years ago we started hearing more and more about China's social credit system. Well, it's no longer just in China, it's here in America. It seems China is very much a testing ground for the growing surveillance state. I want you to check out this clip. It was taken just about a week ago. What you're about to see is very clear evidence that this system is already here. It's coming in layers. We haven't seen the worst of it yet, but it's here.
Hey y'all, I'm at Walmart. I wanted y'all to see something. If I can go to pop up. Look, watch this. And people think it has to do with the flu. It has nothing to do with the flu. It has to do with control. And when I'm in Walmart, and one of these days this is going to be a prison. Watch my words.
And you may be wondering, well, what's going to happen to the humans that are still alive, the humans that are left over? They will be corralled and tagged like cattle. They're calling it the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
The original Industrial Revolution was driven by the discovery that you could use steam engines to do all kinds of interesting things.
But that was followed by additional revolutions for electricity and computers and communications technology. We're now in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution, which is bringing together digital, physical, and biological systems.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
Visualize brain activity, for example, through a simple consumer-based EEG device. It gives us access to ourselves in ways that we've never before thought possible. It unlocks the black box that is the brain and enables us to really, truly be able to realize an identity that is aspirational.
There's now a scientific foundation for the effects of mindfulness on the brain, on the genome, on biological aging. And when the human mind does know itself, then you get the potential for a new renaissance that restructures itself in terms of our relationship to life, our relationship to the planet, our relationship to work.
We need a different economic model. And by that, I don't mean capitalism versus communism. What I'm talking about is a shift in the system along the lines of the two big changes that happened in the 20th century, Keynesianism, with a much greater focus on health and education and the role of government working with business, and then a reaction against that in late century to neoliberalism, where the focus was on free markets, freedom of the individual, and getting governments out of the way. We need a shift to a new system that will allow us to meet the basic needs of every human on the planet, that will live within planetary means, that will be fairer, and that will be focused as its key goal, not on growth per se, but on maximizing human well-being. And history tells us that a values shift is triggered by creation of a new story about how we want to live.
I want to be less bad, less monotonous, less unsafe, less unjust. It's really about a diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean energy.
Together we are fighting to preserve our fragile climate from irreversible damage and devastation of unthinkable proportions.
The prediction of 5 million jobs lost by 2020 to technology is serious, but it's not the main question. Construction, manufacturing, services, public health and education, these industries will still exist. The main question is, what will be the future of work? How will we define work? How will we share the wealth?
One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotions, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts. And in a society where people fear having those thoughts, the likelihood of being able to enjoy progress is significantly diminished.
Here's a few examples of how that's all coming together. Bill Gates and his Gavi Vaccine Alliance launching AI-powered trust stamp, combining a vaccine and digital biometric ID in West Africa. Rockland County, New York, now issuing $2,000 per day fine for anyone who refuses to be a part of their C-19 contact tracing surveillance. In Michigan, House passes bill to voluntarily begin placing human implantable microchips into the bodies of all state government employees. This system really is advancing quickly. And here's an example and a glimpse of our very near future. Microsoft patents new cryptocurrency system using body activity data. This is one of those examples. Clearly, we can see they're going to be tying in our finances with this chip, or with this technology. And now here's a headline that just came out 2 days ago. Google working on smart tattoos that'll turn your skin into a living touchpad. What's really interesting is we were given glimpses of this several years ago. They told us this was coming. Some of you may remember this.
Well, we're thinking of a whole variety of options for how you could do better at authentication. So you can start with nearer term things like tokens or fobs that might have NFC or Bluetooth embedded in them, but you can also think about a means of authentication that you could simply wear on your skin every day for a week at a time, say an electronic tattoo. Now, We're talking about wearables. Everybody's interested in I'm profoundly interested in wearables. And what I will tell you is that we've made a lot of advances in wearables, but there's still some fundamental problems that we haven't solved. Like one of them is the mechanical mismatch between humans and electronics, right? So electronics are boxy and rigid, humans are curvy and soft. That's a mechanical mismatch problem. Well, a researcher at the University of Illinois, his name is Dr. Rogers, what he discovered is that he could use standard CMOS techniques to make islands of high-performance silicon connected by accordion-like structures that would allow it to stretch up to 200% and still be performing. And what he did is he founded a company and they started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication.
And as I had mentioned, this whole thing is spiritual that's taking place. We're watching the finalized beast system come into completion. And we're finding stories like this in Connecticut. Satanic desecration marks 11th attack on Christian church. July 16th, statue of Christ decapitated inside Florida church. July 15th, statue of Virgin Mary decapitated outside Tennessee church. July 12th, statue of Virgin Mary lit on fire in Boston. July 11th, suspect arrested after detectives say he plowed a minivan through the front door of Queen of Peace Catholic Church, doused the foyer with gasoline and set it on fire. July 11th, arson suspected in devastating fire at San Gabriel Mission in California. July 10th, statue of Virgin Mary desecrated with spray paint in Brooklyn. July 4th, statue of Saint Junipero Serra toppled in Sacramento, California. June 20th, statue of Saint Junipero Serra toppled in Los Angeles, California. June 19th, statue of Saint Junipero Serra toppled in San Francisco, California. And May 31st, St. John's Church firebombed in Washington, D.C. And here's a related story. I found something very interesting, and it also came out just a few days ago, July 27th, 2020. An injured Seattle police officer's Facebook post shatters the left's protest narrative. But let me show you what I found. I'm reading a portion of this police officer's post here. It says, "Why didn't we deploy and stop them when the looting started? Our instructions were not to respond to property damage. The fire department was delayed in response because of the big hostile crowd, but they made it and started putting out fires. We only responded when they were about to literally burn down our precinct with everyone in it and the connecting apartment complexes. This is insane. I don't know what the message here is anymore. These people were 99% white and young. They were saying the most horrible things you can imagine to officers of color." Now here's the part you gotta take. Now here's the part to pay attention. Here's the part to pay attention to. They were also assaulting each other in the crowd. I saw signs and shirts that indicated anarchy, antichrist, abolishing religion, bringing down the government, defund, abolish police, defund parks and rec, and abolishing America. I saw signs and shirts that indicated anarchy, antichrist, and abolishing religion. That's exactly what I've been saying ever since all this started. This is the antichrist spirit manifesting in a hive mind through all of these different individuals. This is beyond politics, beyond the left-right paradigm. This is the antichrist spirit in action. Satan's system is incredibly active right now, and the masks have been dropped. It's clear that they are preparing for a post-human world. Most people don't even see this information or understand what's going on. But the key is, and always has been, your relationship with Christ and your relationship with your Heavenly Father. So as always, I'll thank you for watching my video, guys. I appreciate you. So until next time, take care of yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you a little later.
But let me tell you something. When 150 of the most powerful men and women in the world can meet in secret in Baden-Baden, Germany, and plot the fate of billions, and nobody even cares about it. But 6 football players go to lunch together, and it's in the headlines across the country. You have a reflection of the society in which that exists. And it is a sick, sick society that is doomed to self-destruction.